WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Now, here's your host, J.W. Simmons, as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. My name is J.W. Simmons. I'm your host. We're coming to you on Star Communications TV, WCLN radio simulcast on Tuesdays at 2:30, 7 p.m. replay on Tuesday and Thursday on Channel 16 Star Communications. Today we're talking about fire marshals, and we happen to have two fire marshals with us today. I'm going to start with Ronald Willams, and that's a junior tied to your name, Ronald. So I'm going to start with that, and you're the assistant chief / fire marshal, and the city of Clinton is called Clinton Public Safety. It's not necessarily just the fire department, but you may be involved in doing investigation with other things. Plus, in your background at Waycross, living on the family farm down there, by the way, you were involved with the Magnolia Volunteer Fire Department, got some experience there, like what, since you were 16? Well, you're not much older than that now, but anyways, since you were 16, and you still stay involved with that, got law enforcement experience, 2007, and you currently continue to hold that certification, Clinton Fire Department part-time, then you went full-time as Fire Marshal in 2024. Thank you for being with us.
Yes, sir.
Josh, I want to thank you for being here. Josh Deavers, northeastern part of the county. It's an area there called Sutton Town. Most folks know it. It was the Sutton Town Fire Department, then the Sutton Town EMS. And by the way, Sutton Town EMS is still functioning. Thank God for people like Bradley and his dad and Thomas that keeps that thing going. You were involved with that prior to moving maybe kind of in another direction, but you got involved in various aspects, and part of that involvement in volunteerism, you give credit to your dad and your uncle because they were involved in it. And I think it's important for folks to understand, like in your lineage of getting to where you are now, you got involved with 911 dispatch. You also got involved as a deputy sheriff, still hold that state certification with that. Ended up as deputy fire marshal with Sampson County in 2017. A number of certifications in that particular field, to include International Association of Arson Investigators. You have a bachelor's degree with a master's in public administration. So, got a lot to talk about. What I want to do is open this door on Fire Marshal and why an organization, why do we need a Fire Marshal? And I will start with you, Ron.
It's mainly for the public safety. Making sure that the businesses got the correct amount of fire extinguishers, making sure that the like a fast food restaurant or any kind of restaurant's got a hood suppression system in case a kitchen fire happens, and in the event that it does, that the suppression system that'll put it out. Making sure that fire alarms are in proper working order, sprinkler systems are working like they should, making sure exit doors aren't blocked, your corridors are wide enough for the general public to go down.
So, Josh, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of particulars that is just somebody that's moving around in society out there that could be hazards that we're really not aware of. Now, in your operational field, you look at a lot of landscape. This is a pretty big county, and that landscape is part of what your department kind of engulfs. How does that fit? Some of the things Ronald's talking about, how does that fit with the landscape of agriculture and agribusiness?
Yeah, there's a lot of exemptions in code when you talk about agriculture. There's a lot of things with agriculture that that are exempted by the state codes that we wouldn't inspect. But I would say for the most part that, having an effective inspections program, certainly adds kind of an attractive level maybe to businesses looking to come in. I know a lot of times it's looked at as regulation, but It's also tied to a lot of things like people's insurance rates, even for your businesses or whatever out there. Having the inspection program is tied to, fire department insurance ratings. It's tied to the rates you receive on your insurance premiums. So as far as, related to agribusiness, like I say, for the most part, we're fairly, most of those things are exempt from that, other than if somebody has like a storefront where they might be reselling products. But most of that would be exempt. So,
Ronald, you mentioned you get into to this whole aspect of code regulation with a lot of businesses in there because you've got more of an urban kind of population with the city of Clinton. What's one of the big challenges that you want businesses to understand as it relates to code and fire issues that you're kind of looking for? I'll give you an example. I'd say I'm in a business person. Maybe I'm downtown or I'm in one of the, the outstretched areas in the county, and you walk in and you're kind of looking around, and I recognize you as a fire marshal. What should I understand that you're seeing that I'm not?
I mean, it's basically just, making sure that the business is safe for the general public and you. Extension cords ain't made for permanent wiring. A lot of people use those, string them across the floors, hang them through the ceilings and stuff like that. It's just really basically for fire protection, making sure that when an event that a fire happens, that the occupants in the building and the owners are able to get out, and the property can be saved.
When I look at both backgrounds you've got, both you got backgrounds in law enforcement, you got backgrounds with fire departments. This journey to get to where you are now doing this, what was the thing that really intrigued you about this job? And particularly like with you, Josh, I looked at all the things you've done and I'm thinking, wow, but you decided to be, in the fire marshal business. Cause when I think of fire marshal, I'm thinking about an enforcement person. I'm thinking about somebody, but you're involved also in the prevention part.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the first thing that got me interested in it was more the investigation side. I can still remember even a specific fire, where our previous fire marshal, Jerry Cashwell, he come out and investigated the fire. And I was there with, my volunteer fire department and kind of got to observe him doing an investigation. And he kind of shared a few, little tidbits, as much as you can get from just looking over somebody's shoulder. And from that point forward, I was pretty fascinated with the investigation side of what our offices do. The puzzle of figuring out, how a fire started, what components, brought together an ignition source with the competent fuel, to then, proceed to flame and ignition. From that point forward, volunteer fire service was changed for me for the most part. I used to be, excited to get on the truck and go put the fire out and then ready to go back to the house. And, it kind of started down this road of every fire I went to. I was like, what started this fire? So, that's what kind of pushed me, I guess, towards the fire marshal's office. I would say at that time, I probably didn't know what code enforcement was. And it really wasn't until I got hired in the fire marshal's office that I realized, I guess what a big part of the job it is, So since then, I've definitely come to embrace that. And I don't always like getting in people's business sometimes, but the one thing I try to keep in mind in going out and doing code enforcement and fire prevention type activities is, one is the safety of firefighters that may be responding to a building, to a fire. Is there things here that's going to be a hazard to them? Are their doors blocked? Is there, things stored in an unsafe manner? Because, when you pull up on a fire truck, and Ronald knows more than I do, he's worked, much more with the fire department than I have. You don't always know what's inside that building when you have smoke coming out of, every window and every door. So it's kind of being a set of eyes to look for any safety concerns at that point. And then the second thing I look for, kind of like what Ronald touched on, was the safety of the people that are, entering that place of business. They might not be looking for the things that we're looking for. I just want to ensure that if something does go wrong, whether it be a fire or in this day and time, even some other type of emergency, active assailants is a big hot topic thing that, fire code issues, can touch on safety things with that as well, having adequate egress, things like that. So.
Well, and Ronald, just listening to Josh kind of go through that litany of things, it strikes me too that you are, as he said, affiliated directly with the fire department now. You're connected to the chief very closely here. So part of that sounds to me like too, this is a big safety thing for the firefighters themselves, not just the public, but what you look at too is there a hazard here for someone responding to a fire? Yes.
So whenever I go out and do an inspection, a lot of times, what we're going to try to get into is whenever I go out, the truck will go out with us. The captain, the lieutenant, and the fireman, they'll go out and they'll do a pre-plan of the building. And that'll consist of drawing out the building, a layout of what the inside looks like, where the hazards are in that building, whether they've got, stored flammable, combustible stuff, any kind of chemicals inside the building, where the power comes in, where's the breaker box, where's the gas come in at, stuff like that. That way in the middle of the night, when they're on the way to that, when there is nobody there or when the business is full at lunchtime, they know what they're looking for. They know where to pull the trucks. They know where to set the ladder up. They know where the hydrant's at. They've already got an idea of what they need to do before they even get there. It's a lot of people look at whenever the fire marshal comes into a business as, oh Lord, he's going to shut me down, or, he's going to fine me or do something like that. Yeah. Our goal is not to do that. Shutting the business down is the last thing we want to do. That's not our goal. Our goal is to make sure that your business is safe for not only you, but the general public going in there.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to follow up on that conversation and talk about expectations of businesses. Let's talk about what that business should anticipate and what they should be thinking about when you walk through the door.
Computer viruses, malware, and ransomware are out there. They're dangerous, and they can steal your identity and damage your equipment. Star Communications is now offering Protect IQ. The service adds an extra layer of protection to every device connected to your network, working quietly in the background. Star can help you protect yourself from the inside out with Protect IQ. Call Star today and take advantage of this free service when you sign up for whole home Wi-Fi with Star Communications.
How can your friend save you money? It's easy. Refer a relative, coworker, neighbor, or friend to Star Communications. Friend signs up for high-speed internet service. Friend's new account is confirmed. Friend gives your name to our service representative as the one who referred them to Star. You receive a $30 internet credit. It's just that simple. And even better, receive a $30 internet credit for every referral that results in a new confirmed account. High-speed internet from Star Communications. Refer a friend today.
Welcome to Cork and Brew Roseboro, where you can enjoy your favorite coffee, fraps, smoothies, bakery items, sandwiches, and select beer and wines while reconnecting with friends and family. Sit down and enjoy the experience. Come on by and give us a try.
Armed away. Please exit now.
Maybe you can't be in two places at one time, but you can see two places at one time with the help of Star Communications Security. During the month of February, purchase an alarm system with a monthly video package from Star Communications and receive one free indoor camera. Record the day's activities. Remotely monitor what's happening with live video. See, hear, and talk with those 2- and 4-legged loved ones you left at home. Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know's on there. J.W. Simmons here, your host, talking about fire issues, talking about fire marshals, what they do, why you should understand that, and also to try to help you understand why this is a critical job function, not only to keep you safe, but to keep the firefighters safe in this county. Ronald, you were, I'm going to go back to you. You were talking about when you go into a business and you're looking around, you see things, and you talked about this idea of when firefighters, for example, have to go to that call, and it may be after hours, and they're responding to that business. You already have given them kind of a template of what they should look for, because you're looking at chemicals, you're looking at entranceways, you're looking at all the multitudes of things that could be a hazard to them. Is that correct?
Yes. So the firefighters, they go out to the business and they do a pre-plan on it. Like we said before, it's a sketch of the building, the dimensions of the building, width, length, height, and the most important parts of it, where's the closest hydrant? Because if that building's on fire, they're going to need a water supply for it. So they know where the closest hydrant is, where's the best place to set the ladder truck up, in case it's a commercial building or something like that. And where's the power coming into the building, so they'll know where to go and cut the power off. Mm-hmm. Where's the gas coming in at, stuff like that. Because the majority of any business or any residential house inside the city is natural gas. So it's not only for the business, but it's for the firefighters going in and other firemen coming in, that they know what they're looking at, before they get there.
And you mentioned something that I think is a pretty big deal too. And for the county, probably would be LP gas tanks. But for the city with gas, if that's not done correctly, or if there's a problem, that could end up evacuating people from a huge part of the city if there's a problem there.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of them. Piedmont Gas does a good job of, doing what they need to, making sure everything's right. But occasionally we will have a gas leak. And depending on how big it is, the way the wind's blowing, and what is leaking, whether evacuation has to be put in place.
Absolutely. Josh, I want to circle back with you. You talked a bit about codes and particular things that relate to statute. Do you have to deal with not only local codes, but state statutes as well, as it relates to what you can and can't do, or what you should or should not have? So it's not just 2 or 3 page thing. You got a pretty heavy document.
Yeah, that's correct. So here in Sampson County, locally and for the most part across the entire state, local jurisdictions being municipalities or counties, they adopt the state set of building codes. So that's developed by the North Carolina Building Code Council. Mm-hmm. And what they utilize as kind of their template is what's known as the International Building Code. So our codes locally here in Sampson County and in Clinton are based on an international standard. They have pretty much undergone they've undergone a state level, kind of review process. And some things have been altered in them at that level. Here in North Carolina locally, a lot of things, there's a lot of exemptions for agriculture mm-hmm. that aren't present in the actual international model code. But yeah, for the most part, the majority of the codes that we're dealing with are all kind of handed down from the state. And that plays a lot into the things I mentioned previously mm-hmm. about insurance ratings and things like that. Like when a fire department gets ready for, to determine what their insurance rating is going to be, which directly affects, property owners' insurance rates. That's one of the questions is, what version code are you in? What model code are you, is adopted in your local jurisdiction? So you mentioned local ordinances. There is some of those as well. Like in the county, for example, we've adopted what's known as the Sampson County Fire Prevention Ordinance. And so that ordinance, does multiple things. One of them is it's what officially adopts this version of the North Carolina Code. But it also adopts or chooses not to adopt in some cases some of the optional parts of the code that may deal with more specialized things, such as access to, residential type developments. There's a certain section of the code that is optional, but like in our county, it was adopted, many years ago and continues to be so. So we're ensuring that, new housing developments that are going in, the size of those roads and the standards of those roads, including, areas to turn around and all, are meeting the needs of the fire service. So that's kind of an example of some of, I guess, local parts of it. So as far as, state statute, law or whatever, that the main thing statute wise, as far as code enforcement, would just be, the statutes that give the local jurisdictions the authority to adopt those codes and how they, carry out those inspections and so forth. So
Ronald, follow up with you on that. So, for example, somebody says, and we're seeing this a lot, particularly in the Wake County area and Apex, Zebulon, all those towns around Raleigh, and even into Johnston County, these suburbs building apartment complexes and so forth. City of Clinton, somebody decides, well, I'm going to build a 300-person apartment complex. In fact, there's some building projects that's going on as we're sitting here talking today. Do you actually get to look at that first, as Josh just alluded to, and say, okay, this plan looks good, but, we'd like to make this suggestion, or it doesn't fit code? Is that something that's realistic with you?
Yes, sir. All jurisdictions, county or city, whenever somebody builds something, they've got to submit plans. And it'll go to the building department if the municipality has one, or to go to the county at the building, like here in Sampson County. They'll send the plans to them. They'll send them to us. Planning and zoning to get it. And they'll make sure that where it's going, the size of the building, the size of the units, how many is going to be there, how many hydrants are going to be required for it. Like he said, the width of the road going in, and the cul-de-sac at the end, you got to make sure that there's enough room for a fire truck to go down there and turn around. Mm-hmm. You can't take a ladder truck on a one-way street and turn it around. Right. So that cul-de-sac's got to be big enough that it can maneuver in there. And depending on the biggest fire truck that either agency that it has in that jurisdiction, or like in the city, are they going to be parking in the driveways, or are they going to be parking on the streets? If they choose to park on the streets, that means the road's got to be wider for the trucks to come down. And it also comes down to, like where the light lines are going to go, power line, water line, stuff like that.
I think that this is the fascinating part to me of this whole project here in talking about this is folks need to understand, if they're fixing to buy a house in a particular area, or if they're fixing to build a house, or if they're fixing to build a building and have a retail shop, they really need to focus on that piece that you guys look at, because of something you said a while ago. Both of you mentioned this, I think, is that it affects an insurance situation. So, for example, if there's something that's not done appropriately and they do something wrong, it could affect, if they have a fire, how much that insurance is going to pay. Yeah.
Everybody wants lower insurance rates. I don't know of anybody that says I'd rather pay higher insurance rates. So, what we're doing, going out inspecting buildings, making sure the new developments are, to code, and making sure that they're built correctly. It's not that, we decided we want it this way. Mm-hmm. This is, like he said, it's been adopted by the state building code, and we follow suit with that through the fire code. And by us doing that, and the fire departments do their training, stuff like that, they're able to get a lower ISO rating, which in turn drops the residential insurance rates and commercial rates.
Josh, that strikes a moment here to just think about insurance rates. Everybody's been talking about how they've gone up just in the past year or two, tremendously, some of them just unbelievably. But you don't need anything to add to it. The thing that strikes me with your side of the house in the county, you're dealing with, as I recall, like 18 fire departments. You go from Godwin Falcon to Faison and all the way down to heralds. I mean, we're talking a tremendous landscape. How hard is it to keep up with all that's going on? And do you have enough personnel?
Well, I mean, question, of enough personnel. I mean, that's always a loaded question. Nobody, most people typically don't want bigger government, for sure. Right. So we try to definitely accomplish, more with less, I guess, so to speak. We've talked a lot about, the code enforcement side and that is a big part of our job. But, on the county side, kind of serving as a liaison between the county and the 18 different fire departments, that serve our county, is another part of our job. And so it can be, there's a lot going on. We're always, monitoring, kind of monitoring what's going on emergency situation wise. And, we're always there to help, any fire department, whether it be for an emergency situation or if they just have a question, about something that we can help them with. I mean, we're more than happy. I definitely think, the setup with the city of Clinton is definitely a good setup, having their own fire marshal. I think that's a good move for the city to make, being to have a career fire department, adding that piece to it in-house. It kind of helps them I think multiply their effectiveness. I think about what Ronald touched on, having that engine company come out when he does inspections and pre-planning those buildings. That's something that we don't necessarily in the county have a luxury to be able to do. We certainly share, and are willing to share any information that we get doing our code inspections, with the local fire department jurisdiction.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking about specific things that affect your life and your pocketbook as it relates to code enforcement and fires. We'll be back tomorrow.
At Fisher's, it's not just about fashion. It's about exceptional service. Experience top-notch customer care and find your perfect look. Visit Fisher's today and feel the difference.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
The average American household has 17 devices connected to the internet. With more and more devices able to get online, you may need to increase your internet speed. Call Star Communications today and let us help you select the package that's right for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. J.W. Simmons here, your host. We're talking with the fire marshals, one for the city and one in the county. Could be more than one, but we're talking to the deputy fire marshal and the assistant to the chief, which is the fire marshal for the city of Clinton, Ronald Willams, and Joshua Deavers. Josh, you were explaining a bit about what you face in the county of actually doing the code enforcement and the particulars of that. And I want to pick that up from the previous segment.
Yeah. So, you had specifically, I think, asked about, staffing and some things like that. So, I mean, I did want to expand a little bit there and say in the county, we have, more than 1,000 inspectable occupancies just in the parts of the unincorporated county. And then also we contract inspect for all the municipalities in the county with the exception of the city of Clinton and also the town of Salemburg. So they do their own fire code inspections there. And in our office, we have, 2 staff. So there's myself, the deputy fire marshal, and also our fire marshal, Prentice Madgar. So That's a lot of occupancies to get around to. Things have to be inspected in accordance to a state schedule, which ranges anywhere from, typical businesses are once every 3 years. Some, a little higher hazard type businesses are every 2 years. And then there's also, a large group of things that are required to be inspected every year, mostly daycares, things like that. And then public schools are actually twice a year. So those 1,000 occupancies, could easily equate to, 750, 1,000 inspections a year needed. And so to accomplish that in the county, one common question that I get is, why we charge a fee to the business for conducting these fire inspections. So, I did want to mention that, in some ways the cost of this service is passed on to, taxpayers as a whole, and, through the salary of myself and our fire marshal, but, to help offset the need for hiring additional staff, and we do utilize the services, currently of one contract fire inspector, that does go out and perform inspections on our behalf and kind of under our direction. And so his, what we pay him is based off of the fees that we're collecting to help keep that somewhat of a, revenue neutral, type of, system, so we try to minimize the expense to the taxpayer, where we can. So
when I'm hearing, Josh talk about these things in the county, Ronald, the thing that just comes back is, the city is kind of another operating mechanism. You got more density of people in one area. You've got more buildings proximity to each other. Of course, in municipalities in the county, you have the same thing. Does part of this, for example, if you've got a building that's adjacent to, when I say adjacent, I'm talking, for example, like downtown or some of the strip malls out here where you've got them side by side. If a code violation is there, how does that affect the exact adjoining buildings? For example, if you've got something that's going on there that could easily turn into a major fire, if that business says, well, I'm just not going to do that, what do you do from there? If I'm a business owner, I just look at you, well, look, you need to go back to your office. I don't want to get into that.
We've got the steps that we go through, we'll give them a violation, tell them what needed fix, how they can fix it. And we give them so many days to fix it. If it's not fixed within them certain amount of days, they get an extension. And then after that, the last resort would ultimately be, power be cut off to the building.
So it's interesting when I'm listening to this, again, another thing comes to mind quickly here. I had a note on it I wanted to get to, but I'm going to try to put it in right now because time's going fast. When I look at this and say you got a business that's got a business, let's say a business or a residential home, and you've got $500,000 or more dollars that you're paying insurance on. If somebody knowingly, and you go out and say this is a violation and you need to get this fixed, if they do not make the proper adjustment on that, is there some way that violates the potential for their insurance even paying them if there's a fire?
Well, a lot of insurance companies will determine, like a business, whether they need to be inspected. They might be through the state, might be only need to be inspected twice a year. Some insurance companies, since they're insuring that business for a substantial amount of money, that they might require them to have be inspected every year. And a lot of insurance companies require them to have, if you're going to have this business insured by them, then you've got to have, you might have to have a sprinkler system, where North Carolina code might not require that. Mm-hmm. North Carolina fire code might not require them to have a fire alarm, but that insurance company, if they want to be insured, then they do have it. Insurance companies have they got a lot of bite when it comes to the businesses. We don't really have a lot of anything to do with residential. We don't have any jurisdiction in a residential house. The only thing we do inspect residential wise is whenever it's being built for like, a residential, community, or not a community, but,
Like a housing development.
Yeah, like a housing development.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got input on that, but the only thing residential wise is like 1 and 2 family dwellings is if they do foster care, whether they go through the county that they're in, social services, or they go through another agency. They require that the home have a fire inspection. And the state provides them with a form, and it's a checklist. And we have a lot of those in the city, and I know the county has a tremendous amount of them because they call the city a lot, wanting to be inspected. But they, we only do the city, and then they handle the county. But, you know, the easiest thing for them to do is if they do need to be inspected, to take that list, that's a checklist is basically all it is from the social service group. And if they'll go through that before they call me in the city or Josh and Prentice in the county to be inspected, if they'll just go through that prior to us going, then when we get there, it's a lot quicker. We don't have to say, hey, your smoke detectors are beeping. You need to replace the batteries. Right. Well, I don't have any 9-volt batteries with me. I need to go to the store. Well, then you've got to reschedule us to come back out and do it. But if you'll go through that checklist and make sure everything's done prior to us getting there, then it's a lot quicker and it's a lot easier on you also.
It sounds, Josh, like what Ronald's saying is there's a way that they can actually do a pre-plan themselves before you guys show up and before you have the opportunity to say, look, this has got to be done. And then that would require, sounds like to me, that would require you going back and making sure it was fixed.
Yeah, that's right. And, especially with a foster home. Yeah. I mean, it's it's a fairly short 1-page list is all that we're looking for there. And, like Ronald said, I mean, it's, so many times we go out there and there'll be things that are on the list that they have that, aren't correct. So yeah, if they would just look through that and fix that before we go, it would definitely be nice. As far as a typical business or whatever that we may inspect, I think that may be a little more difficult. I mean, definitely a business can walk through and do a self-inspection. I would certainly recommend walk through and make sure your exits aren't blocked. If you have exit signs, make sure that they're working, that they're lighting up. Make sure you have some fire extinguishers. And for the most part, I don't know how Ronald does his inspections, but I try to do my inspections more as a learning experience, and it often tends to be a learning experience for myself as well as the occupant. I always like learn about what businesses do and things like that. And as I'm walking through, I like to explain things I'm looking for. So, if somebody's not been inspected and it's their first time, I would probably say don't be too scared. I mean, if we find some issues, I don't think neither one of us are out to try to go around finding people and things like that. It's just more about, getting compliance for the safety of, the citizens and firefighters. So, I mean, I would say any inspector would be more than happy to explain, why codes require certain things and, use that fire inspection as a learning experience. And, and if next time, throughout the year and in between, that inspection and the next time you get inspected, you'll kind of know then things to look for that might pop up,
And it sounds like some of it is like things that if people would think through the process a little bit is, I don't like to use the term common sense, but things that you would need to know not to do, which is everything from doors that are locked inappropriately or access, exit access, things of that nature.
Yeah. I mean, some of those things, like that, I would probably call them like, I guess, a broader, more of a broader issue like blocked exits or something. Then that's something easy to check for. There's some things in the code that can get, a little specific and, maybe in my opinion, sometimes a little nitpicky, but, they're there for reasons. I don't expect, the average business owner to know, how many inches off the floor a fire extinguisher needs to be or things like that.
Little
and I mean,
detail stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, those are things that if we walk through and notice that, chances are it's going to say, hey, look, according to code, this is supposed to be this many inches, so, but yeah, I mean, it's nothing I would be afraid of. Don't be afraid of us, and I promise we're not out to get you. So
we're there for inspection. Public education. Like you said, we go there. We're not there to scare anybody, or definitely not there to shut anybody down. We're there to, educate them. And like you said, we go there so they can educate us. So, tell us what does this business do? How do you handle this in case of an emergency? How do you evacuate people inside the building if a fire or some kind of emergency happens in here?
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to pose a question, go into break, and when we come back, you guys can get into it a bit. But oftentimes people will say, does this also apply to churches? Well, all three of us sitting here know this landscape is full of steeples. So when we come back, we're going to answer that question. Does any of these codes or all of them apply to churches? We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned and find out.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
Armed away. Please exit now.
Maybe you can't be in two places at one time, but you can see two places at one time with the help of Star Communications Security. During the month of February, purchase an alarm system with a monthly video package from Star Communications and receive one free indoor camera. Record the day's activities. Remotely monitor what's happening with live video. See, hear, and talk with those 2- and 4-legged loved ones you left at home. Security from Star Communications.
At the Reedy Mark, we take pride in a unique, distinguished customer experience. We specialize in handcrafted cocktails, allocated bourbons, as well as gourmet signature food items exclusive to our menu at the Reedy Mark in Roseboro.
Hey guys, Sydney and Jesse here from At the Table. Are you enjoying the show? We want to hear from you. We have a quick survey where you can tell us things you've learned, recipes you've tried, and how the show has impacted you. You'll be entered into a grand prize drawing. Check out our link or scan the QR code for more info. Thank you for tuning in and cooking with us at the table.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. We're talking about issues related to the job of the fire marshal. In this case, the deputy fire marshal, the fire marshal for the city of Clinton. We thank you for being with us. Coming on the last part of the show today. The big thing that we've talked about, gentlemen, and I think Ronald Willams, you are the fire marshal for the city of Clinton. We work directly with the fire chief, and of course, Josh Deavers, you are the deputy fire marshal in Sampson County. So we talked about a lot of things. When we went to break, I made the statement that are churches responsible for these same kinds of things? And on break, Josh, you mentioned that's often a question you get. So I'm going to open with you on that one, kind of approach that to start with.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I'll start by, answering your question and saying yes, churches are, do have to meet, fire code. That would become a big, I guess, topic several years ago. Probably around the time I started working here, our county, we hadn't even been around to every occupancy in the county to do a single inspection at that point. So we were, really focusing hard on going around, inspecting everything, and churches were kind of one of the last things that we got around to. Just by nature, there's typically not somebody there during the day, trying to get up with them. So yeah, I mean, the thing that, I had to explain to almost every church, was, the church is not exempt from fire code and you are required to meet it. And people often ask, well, aren't we grandfathered in somehow? And so, I've heard that a lot. And, the answer, yes, you're absolutely grandfathered in to whatever version of the code was in effect when the building was built. And unfortunately, according to code and according to the state, it doesn't matter that Sampson County didn't have a building inspections department when your church was built. There was still technically a North Carolina code, unless it was built before 1936. So whenever we do churches, because they tend to be some of the older buildings in the county, And, you know, when we do those, we have to be mindful of when it was built and be mindful of what code requirements were in effect, you know, at that time. And so some people, you know, might think that those codes might have been more lax than they are now. And that's not really always the case. You know, in some regards, some things may have been relaxed and other things may have been a little more stringent. So I guess it's not super funny, but, you know, it's always interesting when I would go to these churches for the first time and they would say, well, I don't understand why we have to be inspected. And then I'm sitting there reading on their, you know, the Sunday pamphlet, the history of the church, and it says, you know, burned down in 1826, rebuilt in 1830, burned down again in, you know, 1900. And, you know, so, you know, churches have a history of fire, and luckily not so much the case now. People use a lot more electronic, you know, candles and things like that. And churches do get a lot of exemptions for certain things, such as draperies and things in the church. But for the most part, they do still have to meet code.
And the thing with churches too, if they're having an outside event or something and they put up a big tent or something, that's a whole nother question.
Yeah, that's right. You know, code requires, and it's changed a little bit from one code version to the other. I always have to double check it on square footage size, but yeah, certain size tents, they are required to get an operational and a construction permit to, you know, put up that tent and then to operate that tent, you know, to have service in it or whatever. So we're more than happy to help them, you know, guide them through that process. It's really not super complicated. For the most part, we're making sure there's adequate exits if there's sides on it, making sure there's a fire extinguisher, and making sure that the tent is actually constructed out of the proper material so that it's, you know, going to be, you know, it's going to be more resistant to fire. So
and back to Ronald, also the location and so forth of where that's at. I want to circle back to you, Ronald, with the city, and something we talked about on break is that the burn permits oftentimes related to outdoor fire pits and all those kinds of things. The city is a little bit different than the county, and on the enforcement side, it gets a little bit choppy when you get into July and the summer months and somebody's got a fire pit on and they're decided to roast marshmallows or something and they're not cooking. We've got a violation.
Yes. So in the city is they've got an ordinance that you can't burn anything. The only time you can burn is if it's for cooking or heating. The only problem with that is, you know, in June, July, and August, you know, there's enough humidity, you don't want a fire. And the city provides a pickup service for limbs, leaves, and stuff like that. So that's why the city doesn't let people burn yard material, natural vegetation inside the city is because they offer a free pickup for that, where out in the county you can. Even though a lot of people don't understand it, you know, they'll go online to the North Carolina Forestry Service and get a burning permit, or they might go to the local hardware store and get one, or anywhere else that sells it, and they get a burning permit and they think they're fine, but because the city has that fire ordinance, they're not able to burn. So the easiest thing to do is, you know, whether you stay out in the county or you stay in a municipality somewhere, you know, check with your municipality to make sure that they don't have any kind of ordinance saying that you can't burn. Also make sure that there's not a burning ban. And then same way in the county, you know, contact your county to make sure they don't have a ordinance for that also.
And I think circling back, and just so folks will know, you know, we're just touching on a lot of stuff here. I mean, we could got stuff we could talk, you know, we might need to do a semester, but the reality is it affects different municipalities differently in rural areas. And Josh, I'm gonna circle back to you on this, is oftentimes we've got a lot of folks that don't realize this, I know you do, we've got a large multicultural base here in the county. And a lot of the folks here that are farm workers are coming in and they're used to doing things totally different than we are, because let's face it, they're from another country. Is that something that concerns you when you look at a lot of the areas that farm workers are living in with the facilities they have and that kind of thing? And is language a concern?
Yeah, I mean, you know, certainly language, you know, the ability to communicate and effectively get, our messages out, fire prevention, messages and best practices and things like that to try to keep people safe. So, being able to get that out to that population is certainly important. Concerns, I guess, specifically within those populations, I think, for the most part, fire safety wise, very closely mirror those of everybody else in the county. I mean, we always see a lot of, fires related to, people cooking, whether it be, someone fell asleep while trying to fry, French fries, or, stepped away while they were cooking, or, maybe they put a space heater too close to combustibles, and started a fire. We always see a high number of those type fires across our county. I wouldn't say there's any specific type of fire or fire safety message that, would be targeted specifically at that farm worker, community necessarily. So
one of the things that I will ask you too, and this is kind of a question based on the time of the year. We've just recently gone through probably one of the coldest situations for the past 72, 48 hours, and temperatures down in the teens and continued. And, I've talked to plumbers some, and they say, pipes busting and all this kind of thing. Does that pique your concern, or should I say, does that heighten your alertness, as to code and code enforcement? Because really during that period of time, folks are going to be doing whatever they can to heat as most, economical as possible. But at the same time, they might decide to move some of those space heaters in and put them in strange places.
Yeah. I would say from like a code enforcement standpoint, maybe not so much piquing interest. Just from a general fire prevention and public safety standpoint, absolutely. Like Ronald touched on, we don't inspect people's houses, we other than foster homes. So, from a code standpoint, there's nothing against code for someone having a space heater or, things like that. But from a public messaging standpoint, we want to ensure that, when they're using those devices, they're using them safely, plugging them directly into a wall, not using a drop cord, not going through some type of, multi-plug adapter, be it one of these plugs that plug in one and make it three. Not placing, the cords in high traffic areas where they're going to get stepped on or mechanically damaged. And then if you are using any other type of alternative heat source, whether it be a propane heater or a kerosene heater, just make sure you're doing that safely, keeping it away from combustibles. So
let's make sure I want to make sure they got the contact number for you, Josh. Is that 592-8996?
Yes, sir. That's correct. And
so they can just call and say, transfer them into the Fire Marshal, and they'll either get you or Prentice one.
Yeah, that's great. We have a phone tree, and I wish I could tell you what combination of numbers to press, but I don't know. So just listen to it and
that's a good place to call if you have a question.
That's right.
If it's a church or if it's a home or if it's a business.
That's right.
How about you, Ronald, for the city?
Yeah, they can call 299-4902, and some people get kind of confused because it goes straight to the PD, but we don't have a secretary at the fire department, so the secretary at the police department helps us out, just to say, hey, I need a fire question. She'll transfer it over to us. We'll do our best to get you the answers that you need.
Well, I'm going to say this. I appreciate you guys being here. And for the folks watching and listening, if you haven't met Josh Deavers, he is the assistant fire marshal here in the county. And also for the city, the Fire Marshal, Ronald Willams, for the city of Clinton. These are the two people. Remember these faces. You call, you ask for these folks. And I'll say this on your behalf. You're there to help them. And that's the biggest thing I hope that folks get from this, is that your job is important, and it is to help keep people safe and to help save their lives, and hopefully help them not have a situation where they've got a huge loss of property. Thank you very much for being with us. We look forward to having you back. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions going on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again next week on We Should Know. Always here on Tuesdays, Thursdays as well. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week. May God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.